Larry was 72 and careful with everything he touched, from the loose hinge on his gate to the cracked rim of his favorite mug, and he moved through his days like a man who did not want to make more work for anyone. He was an elderly white man with clear blue eyes and a face that had softened at the edges, not from weakness, but from years of choosing quiet when loud would only break things faster. He lived alone in a small stucco house 4 blocks from the ocean. Each morning he brewed 1 cup of coffee, wiped the counter, checked the mail, and read the city paper from front to back, even the classifieds. People in the family called him dependable. His daughter-in-law, Sabrina, called him the Shadow with a smile that did not reach her eyes, a nickname that sat in his chest like a stone because it was close to how he had allowed himself to live. Larry did not complain. He kept to the edges at birthdays and Sundays, taking coats, untangling a balloon string, refilling a bowl of chips without being asked. He did not need applause. He only wanted a place. His son, Noah, had built a software company that changed the way hospitals tracked supplies. Corporations bought licenses. A bigger company bought his company. Newspapers called Noah a wonderkind. Investors called him again and again. Larry was proud, but pride did not help when small slights turned into habits. There were photos of dinners where Larry's face was half cut off by the frame. There were brunches posted online that no one told him about. There were meetings where Sabrina introduced him as Dad, super low maintenance, and then walked away before he could say hello to the person she was talking to. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself families settle into roles for a reason. Then a message arrived at noon on a Tuesday while he was bagging onions at the market. "You told me to trust Sabrina's investment circle. I put in $18,000. Where is it?" Larry stared at the screen until the words blurred. He had never vouched for money schemes. He saved receipts in envelopes and believed in slow interest. The woman who sent the message did not answer when he called back. A second message came that night from a different number. "You said Sabrina was solid. Now she won't return my calls." He did not sleep much. He sat at his kitchen table and spread out his small life. Bank statements, a checkbook, a 20-year-old watch with a cracked leather strap. He ran a fingertip along the strap and thought about time that folds on itself when a person refuses to stand in the light. In the morning, he pressed the strap flat and decided to do a simple thing, a thing that was his alone. He would replace it. He showered, shaved, put on the clean gray shirt with the pressed collar, and took the city bus downtown because he liked the bus and liked not asking anyone for a ride. The driver nodded. Larry nodded back and sat near the window. The streets slid by in clear pieces. A boy on a scooter, a woman tying her dog's bandana, a ladder leaning against a pale wall where someone was painting over graffiti. He felt steady. Outside the Rolex store, the glass was so clean it looked like air. He reached for the handle and paused, the small pause of a man who checks himself before he enters a room that has rules he did not write. Then he went in. The air was cool and quiet, more like a library than a shop. A sales associate with a neat tie looked up, then his face brightened with recognition. "Mr. Harris, good to see you again." Larry did not think the associate would remember him from the time years back when he had asked for a pressure test after his watch got caught in the rain. But the man remembered. "We have a table free," the associate said. "May I bring you water or tea?" Larry said water. "Thank you." He sat at a small table set with a velvet mat and a lamp that pushed a circle of warm light onto the surface, the kind of light that invites careful work. He placed the watch down. The associate listened to the request the way good people listen, with eyes and not only ears. "Dark brown leather, minimal stitch, slightly wider at the lugs," Larry said, surprised at how sure his voice sounded. The associate nodded and stepped away. Larry looked around and took in small things. A framed print of a diver in black and white, a clock on the wall that marked time without a second hand, the slow movement of a security guard's gaze as he traced an invisible loop from door to counter to exit again. The water arrived in a short glass on a small tray, and Larry sipped it while the associate brought out 2 straps in neat sleeves. The moment felt personal, not because of money, but because someone had made space for him. He lifted the first strap and set it beside his watch. He was lining the holes with the spring bar when a familiar laugh cut through the low murmur of the showroom. That bright laugh Sabrina used whenever she wanted the room to know she had arrived. The door breathed open again. He did not look up at once. He finished placing the spring bar into the second hole. He heard heels on stone and the soft swish of a designer coat. "Well, look at this," Sabrina said, and her voice carried like a note on glass. "Shadow in a VIP chair." Two women with her were already half smiling, ready to be entertained. The associate straightened. The security guard shortened his loop by a step. Larry set the strap down and folded his hands. "Good afternoon, Sabrina," he said. He meant to keep the air clean. He wanted to leave with a strap and a quiet head. "We'll put this on the family account," Sabrina told the associate without glancing at Larry, as if he were a coat rack that sometimes talked. "No," Larry said, and he said it in the same tone he used when he asked for dark brown, simple, wider lugs. He did not raise his chin. He did not try to match anyone's energy. He said a small, true thing. "This is mine." Sabrina tilted her head, a small performance. "Noah won't mind." She reached toward the watch with fingers that wore rings she liked to place in photographs. Larry placed his hand over the watch, not sudden, not aggressive, just a clear cover. The two women with Sabrina traded quick looks. The associate watched the table and did not blink. "You've been in the background so long you think that's where you belong," Sabrina said softly, only for him and for the two women who would repeat it later. "Let the adults handle the front desk." Larry felt something move in him, not anger, not shame, something more like a door that had been stuck for years finally opening with a dry, honest sound. "I'm handling my watch," he said. "Please don't touch it." The room held its breath the way rooms do when everyone senses a seam. A couple near the counter stopped comparing dials. The security guard paused near a pillar. Outside, a bus hissed and pulled away. Sabrina's mouth curled as if she had discovered a hairline crack and wanted to press it until the glass went. "You're still the shadow," she murmured. And before anyone, including herself, could make a better choice, her hand came up in a quick, bright arc that caught the overhead light. Larry saw the movement, but did not flinch. His world narrowed to the small circle of the lamp and the cool weight of the watch under his palm. The rest of the store sharpened, each detail hard and simple. The way things look in the second before something happens that cannot be unhappened. The sound came first, a sharp clap that bounced off glass and stone and made the water in Larry's cup tremble. The heat hit his cheek a breath later, sudden and bright, as if someone had pressed a hot coin to his skin. His palm stayed on the watch, steady on the velvet mat. The strap lay beside it like a small brown road that led nowhere yet. A ring on Sabrina's finger clicked against the table edge. The sales associate inhaled and did not finish the word he had started to say. Somewhere behind Larry, a door's soft pneumatic hiss told of someone entering, and for a heartbeat, the room held still the way a picture holds still before you notice what is wrong inside it. "Touch my dad again and see what happens," a voice said, flat and clear. Larry knew that voice the way a man knows the sound of his front door at night. Noah. He did not turn right away. He let the words cross the space and settle. The associate stepped back. The security guard shifted his weight and changed his loop so that his shoulder filled the gap between Sabrina and the table. Noah crossed the floor without rush, his navy coat open, tie loose from a day full of other rooms. He put one hand on the chair back behind Larry, not possessive, just anchoring the moment. "Sabrina," he said, eyes on her, tone even. "You're leaving now." She blinked fast, color rising. "Noah, it was a joke. He's being difficult in public and—" "It's not a joke," Noah said. His gaze did not move. "We're done. Manager, please start an incident record and pull camera footage. Security, escort her outside and note her name on the do not admit list for all properties under our lease." The manager, who had watched 100 quiet sales and almost no scenes like this, found his voice and said, "Yes, sir," already reaching for a small clipboard that lived under the counter. Sabrina gave a short, surprised laugh that lived high in her throat. "You can't ban me from a watch store. We are family." Noah nodded once as if she had offered a neutral fact about the weather. "This is not about family. This is about behavior in a place of business, and about my father." She tried again, softer now, a performance she used at benefits. "Noah, be reasonable. He's fine. Ask him. He's always fine. Noah looked at Larry's cheek, saw the rising print, and then looked back at her. It will be reasonable when you are outside. The security guard did not touch her. He simply stood in the doorframe in a way that made the path out the only path forward. One of Sabrina's friends whispered, "Let's go." But Sabrina stalled half a second longer, eyes on the small VIP plaque at the end of the table as if that sign were the problem and not the choice she had made with her hand. "Shadow in a velvet chair," she said, too low for the room, but not too low for Larry. "Enjoy it." She stepped back, then walked toward the door, phone already in her palm, fingers moving because motion felt like control. The door side closed behind her. The room breathed. The murmur returned in thin threads. The associate, young and careful, said, "Mr. Harris, may I bring an ice pack?" Larry nodded, and the associate went. Noah crouched to Larry's eye level the way he had crouched to tie his own shoes at 5. "Dad, are you hurt?" Larry took one breath, then another, and found the shape of his answer. "I am steady," he said. "My cheek will sting for a bit." He lifted his hand away from the watch, and the old case left a faint circle in the velvet. Noah glanced at the mat, then at the strap. "You were changing the leather?" "Dark brown," Larry said. "Minimal stitch, slightly wider at the lugs." It helped to say the exact words again. It put the day back into a line. The associate returned with a soft pack wrapped in a linen napkin. He set it on Larry's palm the way a person sets a bird down after rescuing it from a window. Larry pressed it to his cheek and felt the cool push the heat back a little. The manager came with a printed form and a pen. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Harris," he said, hands tight, voice plain. "We're documenting the incident. We'll attach video and statements. Please let us know if you wish to file a police report." Larry looked at Noah. "We will decide after we see how she decides to behave," Noah said. "But please proceed with your internal record." The manager nodded and moved away, already tapping a small silver bell near the side door to call another associate over as a witness. Larry watched the simple order of the tasks. It calmed him because the steps made sense. "I came to change a strap," he said, more to the table than to anyone. "Let's do that," Noah said. There was no rush in his voice. The associate slid into place, hands steady now, tools set like a dentist's tray. He braced the watch in a small rubber pad, seated the first spring bar, angled the strap, and made the clean click that means something is finally where it belongs. The sound pleased Larry more than he expected. The second spring bar, seated with the same soft click. The associate wiped the case with a cloth, turned the crown once to feel the wind, then set the watch in Larry's open palm. Larry buckled the strap and felt the snug new hold against his wrist. It fit. He looked at it the way a man looks at a map before he puts it in the glove box. Noah straightened, signaled to the manager, and then rested his fingers lightly on the chair's back again. "I need to tell you something," he said in a lower tone. "Our compliance team flagged messages about an investment circle tied to the family. They sent me a note this morning. I was already on the way here to talk when the manager texted that Sabrina had come in and was being difficult. He did not say the word violent. He did not need to." "Did she use my name?" Larry asked. "Yes," Noah said. "We will unwind it. I've already told legal to draft a notice and prepare a restitution pathway. No one will be left short because my last name was misused." Larry nodded. He kept the ice on his cheek and let the cold do its work. The mystery of those messages from strangers did not feel like a cloud now. It felt like a knot with loose ends he could see. "Thank you," he said. "But I want to speak to the people myself. I want them to know I did not speak for her." Noah's mouth softened. "We'll arrange it, carefully and in writing first." The associate slid a small bottle of leather conditioner into the box. "A courtesy, sir." Larry reached for his wallet. Noah lifted a palm. "This is on me." Larry shook his head. "No, I said I'd pay for this. That is the line today." Noah looked at his father's face and understood. He nodded and stepped back. Larry placed his card on the small tray. The associate processed the charge, turned the screen toward him, and Larry signed his name in slow, neat strokes. LARIHARRIS. The receipt printed in a clean curl. The manager brought it over with both hands as if the thin paper carried more weight than it did. "We've also added a note to your client profile," he said. "If you ever prefer a private room, we will be ready." Larry thanked him. "I like the table," he said. "I can see the door." He stood up. His knees felt fine. His balance felt trustworthy. Noah walked beside him to the exit. The guard opened the door. Cool air carried the smell of the street, faint diesel, fresh bread from a cafe, ocean salt under it all. On the sidewalk, Noah stopped. "Dad," he said, "I am sorry I didn't step in sooner. I knew she took space that wasn't hers. I told myself it was easier to let it pass." Larry adjusted the ice pack and looked at his son's face, the same eyes he had watched learn to read street signs from the back seat, the same jaw that clenched at math problems and unclenched at good solutions. "We both let it pass," he said. "We're not passing it anymore." A buzz sounded in Larry's pocket. He pulled out his phone, another unknown number. He let it go to voicemail, not because he was afraid, but because he wanted to answer it when he sat at a table with a pen and a clear plan. "Come by the office tomorrow," Noah said. "We'll go through the trusts, the access lists, the family office rules. We will draw lines on paper where we have already drawn them in our heads." Larry nodded. He touched the new strap. It felt like a small, honest fix after a long, slow tear. "Walk with me a block," he said. "I want the air." They moved down the street together. Two men not in a hurry, passing a window with suit jackets on display and a bakery where a girl in an apron wiped sugar from a counter. At the corner, the light turned and the small crowd crossed. Larry stepped into the crosswalk with the group, the city sounding normal around him. The sting in his cheek was still there, but it was a clear thing now, not a blur. When they reached the next block, Noah's driver pulled to the curb. "I'll see you in the morning," Noah said. "I'll bring the papers." Larry put the ice pack in the trash by the bus stop. "Bring a blank page, too," he said. "We may need a new rule or two." Noah smiled, not the public smile he wore for cameras, but the one Larry remembered from a back porch in summer when a boy learned to skip a stone. The car door shut. The street breathed. Larry stood at the bus sign, watch snug on his wrist, and waited for the next steady thing to arrive. Larry woke early the next morning with a dull ache where Sabrina's hand had landed, the skin warm under his fingertips when he pressed a cold spoon there from the freezer, and he moved through his small kitchen in the same order he always did. Water on, oats measured, cup set on the counter. Only now, each action felt like a small promise to himself to keep steady. He put on the same gray shirt, added a soft scarf to hide the mark, and took the bus to Noah's office because he wanted time to think, and because the bus let him watch the city wake up in pieces. A newspaper bundle thumped on a doorstep, a gardener lifted a hose, a school crossing light blinked to orange. At the glass tower, a receptionist greeted him by name and handed him a visitor badge. The elevator rose without music, and a minute later, Larry stepped into a conference room where Noah stood with two people he did not know, Maya from compliance and Daniel from legal. The table held neat stacks of paper, a laptop open to a chart, and a small plate of shortbread no one had touched. Noah came around the table and squeezed his father's shoulder. "We'll be simple and exact," Noah said. Maya clicked the laptop to a folder labeled Cove Circle and began to explain in clear steps. 6 wire transfers over the last 8 weeks, amounts between $8,000 and $25,000, all into a new LLC where Sabrina was the sole signatory. Screenshots from a private Telegram group where Sabrina pitched a family office seed window using the Cade name and a crest someone had copied from old holiday stationery. A PDF that listed Larry as reference character only, with an image of Larry's signature pulled from a scanned plumber's contract he had signed last year. Larry felt the same small click inside that he had felt in the store, the sound of a stuck hinge moving. "Where did she get my signature?" he asked. Daniel slid a printout across the table that showed the source path, a scan from Larry's home printer, forwarded from a generic family email Sabrina had set up years ago to send photos. She had kept the login. It was all simple and ugly at once. "We've already filed account freeze notices with the bank," Daniel said, "and we're sending demand letters to return the funds. Our notice to the group will include a plain language statement from you, if you're willing." Larry nodded. "I want the words to be mine," he said. Short and clear. Maya added, "We're preparing a restitution path in case anything cannot be clawed back. We'll make everyone whole." Larry listened, then asked the one question that kept circling his mind. How many people did she use my name with? Maya clicked to another slide. 7 names, first and last initial, with phone numbers. 1 is the woman who texted you, she said. 2 are retirees. 1 is a single mom who joined because she believed in the family office idea. Larry read the list and ran his finger down the page the way he used to trace the map for Noah before long drives. I want to call them, he said, not to argue, to tell them the truth and to say we are fixing it. Daniel advised starting with a letter to set the facts and give a direct contact line, then following with calls to anyone who wanted to talk. Larry agreed. They crafted the statement together at the table. I did not authorize or endorse any investment circle. If my name or signature was used, it was without my knowledge and against my wishes. We will return your funds. I am sorry this happened under my roof. The last sentence was Larry's. Noah read it twice, then nodded. It sounds like you, he said. They moved on to access controls. Sabrina's name removed from store lists, driver lists, building passes. Trust language updated to require 2 signatures for any family office outreach. The old family email shut down and archived. It was not revenge work. It was repair work, and each step helped. Larry took a breath and felt the room come back into focus. What about the store video? He asked. We pulled it, Daniel said. It's archived with the incident record. If public claims start, we will decide then about a police report. For now, we hold our line. As they spoke, Larry's phone buzzed on the table, an unknown number again. He let it go to voicemail. Another buzz, this one a text from a contact he did not recognize. A screenshot of a group chat where Sabrina had typed, Shadow says yes to everything. Let me handle it. A second line under it read, she thinks no one will ever call her on it. The message came with no name, only, she went too far. He showed the phone to the table. Maya sent it to her folder. We'll verify, she said. Noah's jaw tightened, then eased. Dad, I'm sorry. Larry shook his head. We're here now. When the letters were drafted, Larry read his paragraph one more time and signed it with a pen, not an e-sign click, because he wanted the weight in his hand to match the weight of the promise. They set a plan. The letters would go out that afternoon by email and certified mail. A phone line at the foundation would be staffed to answer questions. Restitution checks, if needed, would be processed within 10 business days. Larry asked to sit with the first call when it came. It might be hard, Noah said. I know, Larry answered. I'm owed the hard part too. They broke for lunch for the simple reason that people think better when they eat. Larry took half a turkey sandwich, wrote the first names of the 7 people in his pocket notebook, and underlined 2, M. Rivera and A. Chen, because he remembered how scared the first text had sounded and how polite the second had been. After lunch, they walked 2 blocks to the senior center where Larry had once taken a free legal workshop. He asked to see the director, Mrs. Alvarez, a woman with silver streaks and a firm handshake who remembered Larry's questions about notaries and durable power of attorney. He explained what had happened, not the slap, just the misuse, and asked if they could host a small clinic on Saturday. A notary, a pro bono lawyer, a banker to explain account alerts, and a gentle person to help people freeze their credit if they wanted. Mrs. Alvarez nodded before he finished. We will set the chairs and the coffee, she said. You bring the people and the calm. Larry promised both. They printed a simple flyer that afternoon. Know your signature, free clinic, Saturday 10 to 2, no speeches. And Larry tucked a stack under his arm to hand to the library and the post office on his walk home. Back at his house, the late light fell across the kitchen table. He set down the notebook and the letters and called the first number on his list, the woman who had written about the $18,000. She answered on the second ring, voice tight. This is Mariah, she said. Larry introduced himself and said the one sentence that mattered. I'm sorry my name was used, he said, and we are returning your money. She was quiet, then asked, why would she do that? Larry did not try to explain someone else's hunger. Because I let silence last too long, he said, but it's not silent now. She cried a little, and he stayed on the line until her breath slowed. He gave her the foundation number and the clinic time and promised a check if the bank did not return the funds. He hung up and called the second person. When he set the phone down, the room felt like a place he lived in again, not a place he passed through. A little later, a voicemail arrived from Sabrina. quick and sugar slick, saying she was sorry for the misunderstanding at the store, and that she was only trying to position the family in better rooms, and that Larry had always been so easygoing about this stuff. He saved it, not to play again, but to keep a record of the way a story tries to move when you don't pin it to the board. Near dusk, Noah sent a document to review, language for the trust update, and a one-page code of conduct for anyone using the family name in any capacity. Larry read every line out loud in his kitchen and signed. He put the signed page beside his watch and used the small bottle of polish the associate had given him to wipe the case clean. He set an alarm for Saturday, took the scarf off, and looked at his cheek in the mirror. The mark had gone to a deep, even color, a bruise settling into truth. He touched the new strap and felt the snug, simple hold. The mystery in his week was no longer, why is this happening? But what will I do next? And for the first time in a long time, he had a full answer ready before sleep. Larry arrived at the senior center before 9 with a canvas tote of flyers, a thermos of coffee, and the neat list of 7 names folded in his pocket. And he set up chairs the way he liked rows. Straight, with clear aisles, a small table at the front for forms, pens, and a bowl for questions people did not want to say out loud. Mrs. Alvarez unlocked the office, rolled out a cart with paper cups and a box of plain cookies, and the pro bono lawyer, a calm man named Reed, laid out simple one-page guides on signatures, powers of attorney, and how to freeze credit. 10 minutes later, a banker from the credit union plugged in a small laptop and tested a hotspot so forms would not fail when people needed them most. And by 10, the first 3 visitors stood at the sign-in table reading the printed sheet that said, in large letters, "No speeches, just help." Larry greeted them by name when he could, and by sir and ma'am when he could not. And he kept his voice low because fear gets louder when the room is too bright. Then Mariah arrived with a file folder hugged to her chest, and he stepped forward and said the one sentence he had promised to say first, "We will get your money back." And she nodded and sat with Reed to sign the request to freeze the account and the consent to accept restitution if the bank took too long. And while she wrote, Larry moved to the next table, where a retired bus driver named Mr. Ortiz held a stack of letters from investment circles he did not understand, and Larry sorted them by dates and pointed to the 2 that used the crest. Sabrina had lifted from an old family card. Then he wrote down the foundation hotline and slid it across with simple instructions. Call us if any new message comes. Do not sign anything. Bring every paper here. At 11, the room was full, but not noisy. Just the steady hum of forms being explained and signatures being checked, and the air smelled like weak coffee and pencil shavings. And through it all, Larry felt the small ache in his cheek settle into a dull line he could ignore. At 1:15, his phone buzzed, a number without a name, and he let it go to voicemail. Then a text followed it right away. "She is coming." And he looked up at the glass doors just as Sabrina stopped outside on the sidewalk in dark glasses with her jaw set, one hand on her phone, the other on the strap of her bag. Mrs. Alvarez met Larry's eyes, and he shook his head once to say he would not walk to that door, and she stepped out and spoke to Sabrina with the voice she used on busy days when the copier jammed. "This is a private clinic for registered guests. We can schedule you for Tuesday if you need general services." And Sabrina said, "I am family," like it would open any room. And Mrs. Alvarez said, "That is not how rooms work here." And after a beat, Sabrina left a white envelope with the receptionist and turned away without looking inside. A small spin of anger in the way her heel caught the mat, and the receptionist brought the envelope to Larry's table and set it beside the bowl of folded questions. He did not open it at once. He helped an older woman named A. Chen call the bank to place a verbal freeze, and then walked her through the 2 codes she needed to write down and keep. And after she thanked him 3 times and pressed his hand the way people do when they want you to feel the weight of their thanks, he took the envelope to a quiet corner and broke the seal. Inside lay 3 pages. A photocopy of the old plumber contract he had signed last year with his signature circled in orange ink, a second page with the same signature cut and pasted onto a reference letter, and a printout of a chat where the account named S had written, "Shadow says yes to everything," and beneath those a yellow sticky note with 2 words in block letters, check exif, signed only with the initial A. He did not know who A was, but the pages were clear, and he slid them into a plastic sleeve and gave them to Reed with 1 sentence. Add these to the file. And Reed nodded and said, "This will help." And the work went on. At noon, Noah slipped in through the side door without a suit jacket. Sleeves rolled, 2 paralegals behind him carrying a portable scanner and a locked pouch of bank drafts in case they needed to issue checks on the spot. And he did not speak to the room. He moved table to table, listened, and signed where a second signature calmed a process. By 1, they had met with 11 people. By 2, they had finished with 17. And when the last man left, they packed the forms into the pouch, set the Saturday clinic sign on a shelf for next time, and Mrs. Alvarez locked the room and hugged Larry like a colleague. Outside on the steps, Noah stood with his hands in his pockets and said, "Dad, you were good in there." And Larry said, "We did the simple thing, and the simple thing worked." And Noah said there was one more place to be today if the energy held. A small foundation meeting at the Civic Hall where they would present a pilot called Quiet Hands, direct microgrants and clinics for elders who get edged out by family noise. And Larry looked at the time and touched the strap on his wrist and said, "I have 1 clean shirt left." And Noah smiled and said, "That's all a meeting needs." And 2 hours later, they walked through the hall's side entrance into a room lit by a soft wash, not glitzy, just bright enough to read. The board chair finished the minutes, then nodded to Noah, who nodded to Larry. And Larry stood and told the room what they had done that morning in 8 sentences, no flourishes. Then he set 1 rule on paper, no speeches, just help. And the board voted to fund 3 more clinics, 1 each month for a quarter, and to print the guides in Spanish and Tagalog as well as English. During questions, a staffer touched the chair's arm and pointed toward the lobby. And 2 members looked back because Sabrina had arrived again with 2 women from her circles. And she tried the front desk with her old smile. And the staffer searched the tablet and shook her head because her name was not on the list. And Sabrina said, "It is a mistake." And the staffer said, "We do not make additions during meetings." And after a long second, Sabrina stepped away, then paused as if waiting for someone to fetch her. But no one did, and she left. The meeting ended with no applause, only a clean vote and the dull sound of stacked chairs. And when people filtered out, a man from the city attorney's office handed Larry a small USB and said, "The store manager asked me to deliver the incident video to you directly." And Larry thanked him and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket with a care that made the pocket heavy. Outside the hall, twilight had dropped onto the street, and the air had that cool snap it gets near the ocean after a long day. And Larry and Noah walked to the curb in a quiet that did not feel empty. And Noah's phone buzzed, and he glanced down and said, "She posted a note online." And Larry said, "We will not post anything today." And Noah nodded because the plan had been clear from the start. Private repairs, public silence until facts mattered. Back at home, Larry rinsed a mug and set it upside down on a towel and placed the USB beside the watch and the small bottle of conditioner like 3 tools for 1 job. Then he wrote a line in his notebook. Clinic, 17 people, funds, in process. Evidence, envelope plus video. And he drew a short line under it because he liked how an underline makes a day feel finished. Before bed, he stepped out to the small porch and listened to the street settle and thought about the sticky note and the initial A. And he did not force the mystery to solve itself. He let it sit, because some answers come the way a bruise fades. Honest, slow, and easy to see when the light is right. On Sunday morning, Larry laid the USB and the plastic sleeve from the envelope side by side on his kitchen table, brewed 1 cup of coffee, and wrote 3 lines in his notebook. Video, envelope, exif, so the day would move in order. Then he took the bus to Noah's office because he wanted the ride to clear his head and because he liked arriving under his own power. And when the elevator doors opened, he found Noah already there with Maya from compliance and Daniel from legal, a small gray laptop on the table, a cable ready for the USB. They did not waste words. Daniel plugged the drive in, and the store video opened with a timestamp, a clean angle, and sound that caught the clap of Sabrina's hand and Noah's voice after it. and they watched it once all the way through. No fast forward. Then Daniel saved 2 copies, one for the incident file, one for an off-site backup, and labeled them with the date. Next, Maya opened the scans from the envelope and turned to the sticky note that had said check EXIF with the initial A, and she ran the files through a simple tool that pulls hidden tags. The plumber contract scan had a creator tag that read CamScan Pro, device iPhone 13, user Sabrina, and the reference letter showed author S. Varelli, last saved by A. Leong, along with a GPS tag that pointed to a shared co-working space on Anacapa Street, Suite 204, the kind of detail ordinary people never think lives inside a file. Larry sat forward, not because he needed the tech explained in depth, but because the neat path of the data calmed him. Who, where, when. Maya looked up and said, A. Leong is likely the A who wrote the sticky note. She last saved the file and probably realized what it was. And Noah tapped his phone and asked his assistant to cross-check membership at that co-working suite. 5 minutes later, a message came back with a short list and one match. Ava Leong, event coordinator, Sabrina's contract helper for 2 gala seasons. They did not guess further. They just moved to the next step. And Noah said, let's invite Ava to talk. And Maya drafted a simple text. We're trying to fix harm done using Mr. Harris's name. You left a note that helped. Are you willing to meet quietly? No lawyers on our side unless you want one. She hit send and set the phone on the table face up so the reply would not surprise anyone. They went on with the restitution work while they waited, printing certified letters, preparing a short FAQ for the hotline that said, in plain words, what would happen and when. At 10:42, the phone buzzed and showed a message from an unknown number. This is Ava. I can meet at noon. No cameras. I have a child with me. And Larry said, pick a safe place. And they chose the children's room at the public library because it is public and calm, and because no one makes a scene near toddlers stacking blocks. At noon, they walked in together carrying nothing but a manila folder, and found a woman in her early 30s at a low table. A little boy parked beside her with a juice box and a book about trucks. She looked up and said, I'm Ava. And her voice had the thin strength of someone who has been holding a secret too long. She did not shake hands because her hands were on the boy's shoulder. Noah thanked her for meeting, and Larry thanked her for the note with the same tone he used at the clinic. Simple and real. She said Sabrina had asked her to tidy a document. And when she opened the file, she saw Larry's signature clipped in like a sticker. And she told Sabrina it looked wrong. And Sabrina laughed and said, it's fine. He always says yes. And Ava did not like it, but she needed the job, so she hit save. But later that night, she could not sleep, and she printed the pages, wrote the sticky note, and walked to the senior center when she saw Sabrina go inside. I slid the pages into the envelope while she was filling out a form, Ava said, eyes on her child, and I left because I got scared. And then she pushed her phone across the table with the voice memo app open to a file named 8-17 Cowork, and said, I recorded her bragging because I thought if anyone asked me later, I'd need proof. And they listened with one ear because the boy was humming to himself and flipping his book pages. Sabrina's voice on the memo, bright and mean, saying, Shadow says yes to everything. Larry felt the old stone in his chest shift, and then lift a little, because now it was not just his word against a habit. It was sound and date and place. Daniel thanked Ava and explained in clean terms that she could send the original memo by email, and they would keep her name confidential if she wanted. And that if anyone threatened her for sharing, the foundation would pay for a lawyer to protect her. Ava nodded and asked for that promise in writing. And Daniel wrote it out by hand on a sheet from the folder, signed it, and slid it back to her. The boy tugged her sleeve and said, truck page, and she smiled at him, small and tired, then looked up at Larry and said she had been ashamed for working with Sabrina. And he told her that fixing a wrong is not the same thing as pretending it never happened, and that she had done the brave part. They left the library with the file and the memo and went back to the office to finish the clean work. Maya added the metadata screenshots to the envelope file. Daniel attached the voice memo to the incident record. Noah dialed the co-working manager and ended Sabrina's access to the suite. Then they called the 7 people on Larry's list. 4 picked up, 3 returned calls by late afternoon, and each call followed the same pattern. Larry said who he was and apologized. Noah explained the restitution process. Daniel answered any legal question, and when someone cried, Larry stayed on the line until the breathing evened out. Around 3, Sabrina posted a long story online about family betrayal and elder confusion, and people began to text screenshots to Noah. But they held the line as agreed, no public statement that day, because they wanted their facts to reach the right ears first. At 5, the bank confirmed it had frozen the LLC and that 2 of the larger wires were already reversing. And Maya printed the confirmation and put it face up on the table like a small, neat victory. At 6, Larry asked if they could be finished for the day, not out of weariness, but because he had a different room to be in. And Noah said yes and walked him to the elevator and squeezed his shoulder again and said, "You kept the day simple and that saved it." And Larry said, "We'll keep it simple tomorrow too." And then he went home in the soft orange light that happens when the sun drops behind the low roofs. At home, he put the USB and the new papers in a fireproof folder, labeled it Quiet Hands, Evidence, slid it onto the shelf behind his tax files, and then he took the small plant the foundation children had given him and pressed it into the dirt of his back garden, thumb on the stem so it would stand straight. When he came back inside the house, smelled like earth and mint tea. And his phone buzzed one last time, a message from Sabrina that said only, "We need to talk." And he typed back, "Not tonight." He set the phone face down, buckled his watch a notch looser because the evening air had raised a small swell in his skin. And he sat at the table and wrote one line for the page he had promised they would add. New rule. No one uses the family name or any family member's name for any business, pledge, or request without written consent from 2 of us. He underlined it once and closed the notebook. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt like the place where silence hid problems. It felt like the place where quiet work got done. And if tomorrow brought more calls, he would answer them with the same order. Who, where, when, and then what we will do next.